What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're all doing well today. We're going to be doing the final Top Pocket knives of the week for 2022. These are going to be the knives that I carried for the last week of the year. Without delay, let's go ahead and jump into it and knock this one right on out. Monday, I went with a Micarta Monday theme and brought out the Giant Mouse Ace Grand. If you've been around on this channel or following me for a little while, you know this is one of my favorite pickups in 2022. This is a River's Edge exclusive micarta, brown burlap micarta, very smooth micarta. Has a black washed 4V or 4E as they call it from Bowler blade steel. This one here I did modify it to knock down just a little bit to get better access to the lock bar. If you've watched again recently when I did a disassembly of this, I went ahead and installed skiff bearings. Those are breaking in nicely. No blade play side to side or up and down. And I also went ahead and did a video where I showed where I just touched up the lock bar a little bit to get rid of that lock stick. So I just dropped it like that, and there's absolutely no lock stick. The bearings are still making a track. I've only been able to carry it twice since installing those bearings, so I definitely have my work cut out for me. But this is just a great full-size EDC knife. Great blade shape, very versatile drop point, clip point. Yeah, flat clip point out here on the end. It's very straight. Great belly. Lots of cutting surface that's going to allow you to do really nice push cuts. You can get your utility draw cuts done with this. You have to come up a little bit higher, but it is really good, especially if you have large hands like I have and you need to use the pinch cut to get into some packages or things of that nature. If you don't want to modify yours, you can just use the flat slide to get to that lock bar. The access is not that bad. It's just I like to come in from the side, and I also really like being able to have all of the options for disengaging the lock bar. So that includes being able to pull up. This one does have a ramp, so as you can see here, if you kind of don't get it past a little bit of a ramp, when you go to shake it, it'll either stop or it could go back up. I don't mind this actual steel wire pocket clip. Usually I change these out very quickly, but because this one's so short and pretty sturdy, it doesn't flex around a lot when you have your hands on it. And again, very fidgetable, very clean lines because it's just the thumb hole. And you do have a little bit of style jimping back here, but functional jimping here midway through the blade, landing in a really good spot for that. Just a very highly recommendable knife. They do have the base model on LMAX, which is a great steel for EDC. It's going to do you well. It'll hold a pretty good edge, fairly easy to maintain and sharpen because it's within the spec range, but it's on the lower side of it for the heat treat on these knives. But don't let that discourage you because it is going to perform just fine for average task, meaning when you go to open packages, break down some cardboard, get into some letters, cut some strings, zip ties, a little bit of cutting straps and ropes. It is going to hold up really well if you don't use your knife for cutting tasks all day every day. So like I said, EDC to me is just average use of what you'll find for most users. Let's go ahead and keep this moving. On Tuesday, I went with a Titanium Tuesday theme, and I brought out my Nimble X. This one also I recently did a skiff bearing install on, and I did tune the detent on this because it was very light. And as you can see there, just that little bit of tuning that I did on this one made it very snappy in all the ways that you can deploy this. And this is a fidget monster because you do have all kinds of ways that you can deploy this. Very comfortable too. The larger one fits in hand really well. That forge choil allows me to get almost the full finger in there, and it does leave me enough space behind the blade so long as I'm not trying to go right into the finger choil and use that gap. I kind of find that I have a 45-degree angle here going, and that works really well for me. You can go directly over top of it and still have plenty of space back, and you can go all the way back, but that to me just puts you too far off of the knife here, unless you're trying to puncture into the cardboard and then you want to move up for your push task. This sheep's foot blade is great for draw cuts and utility cuts, detailed pinch grip cuts, all of that. Very good thin blade. The black wash on it is very well done. I like the way that that looks. I like the look of this giant fuller that goes all the way down the side of the knife. If you don't want to reverse flick, and if you want to kind of come in from the side here and you want to hit that fuller, fits in there very nicely as well. Good access to the lock bar. It's not great, but it's good. So you can get in there fairly easy no matter how you like to disengage the knife. No stick whatsoever, no lock rock or side to side play, and just very comfortable. Again, great everyday carry knife for your EDC task. I really like that one a lot. Very close in size to that Giant Mouse Ace Grand, as you can see here on the table. Wednesday, I was carrying my Penguin Plus for Wharncliffe Wednesday. This one here is the traditional pocket knives exclusive Jig Titanium and M390, and instead of the wire deep carry pocket clip, it has the milled titanium clip. It has great access to the lock bar. This one here, a little bit thinner than the last two I showed you because it has the flat scales, but it does have a nice tall scale, so it still feels very comfortable in hand. Great utility cutter. Push cuts are going to work really well, and your draw cuts and utility work. It's okay to choke up on. I kind of wish this had the same style flipper as you see on the Nimble X, and that it was kind of more straight back. They could have easily just had this run even with the scale here, and you still would have had enough of the flipper tab maybe sticking up, or even if you didn't, if it was still flat, I think it would look a little bit better. This does not work really well in my opinion for the push. You really just have to light switch this, and it has awesome thumb studs, so it works really well for the thumb studs, and I think this just really looks good in the jig. I did recently open it up for a disassembly and found that I needed 5 by 1 millimeter skiffs, which I have in the house now, so I need to install that. But for some reason the pivot has shifted around, even though it is a captive pivot. So I'm going to look at correcting that when I get in there to fix that. I did have to, for this one, use the medium Loctite to keep that from backing out, but after letting it sit for 2 days, when I came back to it, it has remained perfectly centered, and it has not backed out anymore. And again, I'd really just like the Penguin, but it was always too small. So the Penguin Plus is a fantastic size. And again, this exclusive from traditional pocket knives, great looking knife, and the extra texturing gives you a little bit more confidence in hand as well. For Thursday, I went with a thumb stud Thursday carry, and I broke out the AD20S. What can I say? These original goat scales in titanium just look fantastic on the knife. Awesome upgrade. Added just a little bit of weight because I did get the hollowed out version, but the weight felt good anyway. And then this one is linerless. I did go ahead and go with the completely blue pocket clip, solid color, just as a little bit of pop of color. Not too busy, and keeping it very classy. Nice ergonomics, beautiful stonewash on this S45 VN sheep's foot blade. They call it a shark's foot. You have thumb studs, or you have the opening hole for the reverse flick, which I really do appreciate, and you can deploy it with just the shark lock. This one's really comfortable in hand and fits really nice, and I love that pattern. I think it really just transformed the knife, and I do have these skiffs in the pivot here as well because they came with the steel bearings, and I wanted the ceramic for peace of mind because the S45 is corrosive resistant. I just wanted to keep that going by going ahead and installing those skiff bearings. Moving right along, trying to keep this one a little bit shorter. It is the last one of the year, and some of these knives you're pretty familiar with, but I do like to give the updates, which is why I do enjoy doing what I've carried on the week, to give you updates and little things that I've done in between in case you're interested in that and can be on the lookout for it. Last, for Fat Carbon Friday, I had to break out the Shaman. One of my favorite users. I got the skinny scales on here with the red dark matter scales done with the lanyard hole delete. the MXG Gear titanium fold over deep carry pocket clip, and I do have the CME, which is the compression made easy. This is from OCD for EDC. Really does make accessing the lock bar a lot nicer. The only thing I'll say about this is I do find, and I probably need to go ahead and sand it down a little bit, is sometimes you see it doesn't close all the way. It is harder with the button to get it to pinch all the way open on the Shaman because of how it has to be designed to get past that nub. Full forward finger choil. This one's done in M4 blade steel, which I really love. Great performing steel. Has an awesome heat treat from Spyderco. Still rocking the factory edge on this one. I do use it, but not quite as much as a couple of the other knives that I like to grab as my user. But this one really awesome. Feels comfortable in hand. Great weight for EDC. Thumb hole on this thing is awesome. Good detent. Great action for washers. This one does not have bearings, but that does make it less susceptible to dirt and debris gumming up the works if you are using this a lot to break down things that'll allow dirt and debris to get into that pivot. Great knife. Those scales are made by Carbodize over on Instagram, but you can check out RC Blade Works. You can check Sharp Dressed Knives. You can check RGT. A bunch of them make scales now, and I even think Original Goat's about to dive into Fat Carbon because they posted a teaser picture of some Fat Carbon from the side on their Instagram, which is another great reason why you want to follow some of these companies on Instagram. That's it. Let me know what you've been carrying here that you've enjoyed the most recently. I love to hear that stuff, and what you have coming for the new year. I'd love to hear that as well. If you aren't subscribed, consider subscribing. Don't forget to leave a like for today's video. I appreciate all the support from each and every one of you that are subscribed, regularly commenting and liking the videos. Thank you so much, guys. Hope you have had a happy new year, because this actually will be posting after. So hopefully you had a lovely new year. Thanks, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.